Our speaker today is Melissa Rodriguez McClain. She's a community advocate and speaker who partners with Refugio, an organization dedicated to offering hospitality, solidarity, and compassionate support to the families impacted by the immigration detention at Stewart Detention Center. And I'd like to welcome Melissa to the podium at this point.
Hello, good morning. How are y'all today? It is such a joy to be here with you. Y'all have a beautiful space. And I first wanted to start, I'll tell you a little bit more about what we do in just a bit, but I also wanted to share just a brief story that when people come to El Refugio, which is a physical hospitality house in Lumpkin, Georgia, about a mile outside of Stewart Detention Center, they come to us looking for refuge and sanctuary and just a space to feel supported and content and nurtured, but they come to us with so much skepticism because they can't fathom why anyone would care. So they come to us and they come to our house and they're hesitant as they walk in, and we say, there's food, there's drinks, can I get you anything? There's games for the children, and there's an immediate feeling of mistrust of why are you caring about us? And often they will ask. And so I one time had someone ask, do you get a paycheck for this? And at the time, I was just a volunteer. And I said, no, I don't. And she said, then why do you do this? And I said, what do you mean? Because I wasn't really understanding her question. I said, what do you mean? She said, well, why do you do this? Why are you here? Why does this matter to you? And I said, well, because this should matter to everyone. This is important. And she just said, I just don't really get it, why you or any of them are here. And the conversation proceeded, but over time, I actually became an employee, a staff member of El Refugio. So I started receiving, a paycheck, a salary. And I keep coming back to this question because my role is to get volunteers involved in doing this work. And I come back to the question, why do you do this? Why are we here? Why are we committing our time that a lot of us don't have, but we're committing our resources and our availability to others? And I just wanted to share that to say, that is all of you. Jackie, who coordinated me to be here, Amanda, who was incredibly receptive, made it possible for me to come and share the story. And you all could have seen that there was a speaker coming and stayed home. You really could have. It's always an option. But you came and you're sitting here, and I suspect and hope that you'll listen and that you'll open up your heart to something that might be either familiar to you or not familiar. But in that, you are helping me tell the story when I get the question asked again, why do you care? You are all part of that story by allowing me to be here and talk to you. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, Jackie, Amanda, and everyone who's been so kind to me being here. I'll tell you a little bit about El Refugio to start. So we are a nonprofit organization. We are based kind of out of Atlanta. We're all remote, essentially, but our main signature program is our hospitality house, which is in Lumpkin, about 45 minutes out. Out of show of hands, who knows Lumpkin? Okay, this is great. In Atlanta, that never happens. So this is a great start. Lumpkin is a very small town. It's about 800 or so people. And their signature and main industry is this detention center. I'll tell you a little bit more about the context of why we exist, but I'll start by sharing our mission with you. Our mission is to accompany immigrants at Stewart Detention Center, and in our mind, accompaniment looks like hospitality, visitation, support, and advocacy. Overall, we're serving and striving toward a just immigration system, but in the process, we recognize that our immigration system will change every election year. Our community will shift. The people who are being detained and persecuted will change all throughout history and have changed throughout history. So our goal is to just accompany and journey alongside them. That doesn't mean that we can solve problems. That doesn't mean that we can fix things. That doesn't always mean that we have the funds or the skill set to help people with what they need, but we can sit in the discomfort with them. We can be moral support. We can extend our hand and we can say, hey, in the midst of all of this that is going wrong and that is hurting you and affecting your family, we will be here with you. You will not face this alone. That is who we are and that is what we do. like Paul mentioned, and thank you for introducing me, my name is Melissa Rodriguez McClain. I am the Community Engagement Coordinator for El Refugio. So what that means is I go around Georgia finding people who care, small pockets of people. There aren't many, but this is one of the wonderful welcoming communities I've come in contact with, which I'm so grateful for. I'll go out and I'll share a little bit about what we do in hopes that I can get people involved. Not because we necessarily need more volunteers, but because we always want to ensure that the conversation is happening, that no one's turning a blind eye to some of the injustices that we're seeing daily. So I like to mobilize people and resources to Lumpkin, specifically trying to get folks connected to our hospitality house in Lumpkin, but also as I move throughout Georgia, sometimes South Carolina, North Carolina, I also try to ask our volunteers or prospective volunteers, what is your capacity? What can you do? And if it's just giving a little bit of your time to share this morning about what we do, that's plenty because already you're doing more than most. So thank you again. In the process of our organization being founded, we've looked kind of differently. So in 2010, when we actually started, we had a group of what we call our founders who their initial effort toward a just migration system just looked like trying to understand what was happening. So at the time, Stewart Detention Center in Lumpkin was just men. There was a different detention center, and it was in Irwin County, Irwin Detention Center, and that one was just women. So at the time, we had these two massive immigration detention centers, and those are private for-profit companies that are essentially either prisons or warehouses that have been flipped and turned into private prisons for specifically the purpose of detaining migrants. So in Georgia, we have migrants who are detained. In other states, we have families that are detained, so there are families, children who are in these prisons. This has been happening for a long, long time. Like I mentioned, we were founded in 2010, but this has been going on much longer. It's not something new to this administration, and it's not something new to this country, unfortunately, or to history in and of itself. But in 2010, our founders started off by just trying to understand what was going on inside. So they would meet in the parking lot, and they would pass out names and what are called A numbers, which is the identification number that you get when you are detained by immigration. You are processed, you are assigned a number. They tell you your country of birth, or you tell them your country of birth, and from that point on, that is who you are known as. Not your name, not your biographical information, not your circumstances or your story. You are known by your country of birth, and you are known by your A number. So at the time, our founders came together in the parking lot, and they would pass out numbers and say, okay, you're gonna pretend to be this person's friend, you're gonna pretend to be this person's brother, you're gonna pretend to be this person's cousin, and we're all gonna go inside, kind of inconspicuously, try to meet with these people and see what's going on. So they would go in and they would do visitation. It's just like you picture in the movies, through that plexiglass screen with a phone receiver that's kind of crackly and you can't really see what's going on. It was the same concept. There's 5 little stalls when you enter that visitation room, and you get about 45 minutes on a good day to talk to the other person. So they would show up and say, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? And the person detained for the first time felt like someone cared. They would say, I don't know what's happening here. They're doing all sorts of things. And they started shedding the light on what were a lot of human rights violations. Over time, Irwin Detention Center fell under investigation, federal investigation, because they had nurses and doctors that were performing non-consensual procedures that were of the sexual variety and worse on their female detainees. So a whistleblower who was a nurse went to the FBI. They shut down Irwin Detention Center, but all of the women that were at Irwin then came to Stewart. So now Stewart is co-ed, it's men and it's women. And so in 2010, our founders started trying to get a better understanding of what was going on behind the doors at Stewart, what was going on with guards, how families were feeling. And over time, what they realized is that so many of these families were coming to visit their loved ones, and they had nothing to give them hope. They were touching base with their loved one, but they maybe sometimes would show up and not get a visitation time. Or they would come in and they would be in the parking lot and someone would say, okay, well, your visitation is in 6 hours, but you can't wait in the lobby. You can't wait in the parking lot, so you have to wait in your car. You can't exit your car. You can't walk around the premises. So we had families in the heat of Georgia summer sitting in their car for hours and hours and hours waiting for their visitation spot. Then maybe they would come in, they would try to use the restroom, they couldn't. They would have their maybe 20-minute or 30-minute visitation, and then they would have to make their long drive back to wherever. At the time, wherever folks were detained didn't determine where they would be, or I'm sorry, where they were arrested didn't determine where they would be held. So sometimes families were driving in from North Carolina, from Tennessee, from Florida. We've had families driving in from Iowa, Ohio, just far, far distances to wait in their car 6 hours, see their person for 20 minutes, then start the drive back. If you've ever been in Lumpkin, you know there are no Airbnbs, there are no hotels. That's not something you can find. So a lot of those families actually found refuge here in Columbus, trying to find some industries or businesses that would help them kind of make the journey easier. So our founders decided to take some of their grassroots activism and create this physical shelter. It was a double wide with one bathroom, but it was a small beacon of hope where families could come in, sleep on the floor if they needed to, sleep on a pull-out couch. We very humbly made beans and rice and quesadillas and very economic meals that would at least sustain them through their experience visiting with their loved one over the course of a weekend. And then over time, as our organization grew, we gained a little bit of national recognition, and the journalist / comedian Samantha Bee, I don't know if you all know that name, but Samantha Bee wanted to do a story on what was going on at Stewart. By this time, there were, detention centers were getting notoriety, and she wanted to do a kind of a piece about it. And she contacted El Refugio and said, what can I do? How can I support you? And our very brilliant founders at the time said, buy us a house. And she said, okay. And she did. So she bought us this beautiful historic home. It happened to be the only house that was for sale in Lumpkin at the time. This was very serendipitous. She bought us this beautiful house. We remodeled it. We turned it into a space that now can sleep between 16 and 20 people. We have a kitchen. We have a dining table that seats 24 people. We have a kids playground in the back. We have a compost area. We have truly a space, a refuge that when you get into Lumpkin and you feel the spirit of the land feeling so heavy and unwelcoming and hurtful, when you at least get to the house, there's this sense of hope. There's this peace that envelops you that makes families feel like they're going to be okay. And so they come in and they get food. They have access to gas cards. We will give them gas cards for their journey. We will let them stay the night if they need to. We will help them with transportation, help them with legal services of all sorts of different things, mental health counseling, and a lot of different services that we have been able to provide solely because we have volunteers who have said, I want to invest my time and my skills into doing this. To be honest, it's a challenging thing to host families in a house 52 weeks a year, even on holidays, because we're only a staff of 4. We have an executive director, Amilcar Valencia, who lives in Atlanta. We have our advocacy and communications director, Joanna, who's also our social worker and does a lot of case management for families. I'm here, I'm the community engagement coordinator who mobilizes resources and volunteers to get them to Lumpkin. And then we have a part-time executive assistant, Maggie, who I say is part-time, but she does more in her part-time work than any of us do, like year-round. So she's incredibly effective. But that's a staff of 3.5 people that are trying to get over 2,200 individuals at Stewart to feel like there's support. And we do that by mobilizing volunteers in and around Georgia to get them to our hospitality house in Lumpkin and serve in some kind of way. So that's what I'm doing here today, is telling you a little bit about how we got here, the context of why we exist, and then maybe if you're interested and invested in doing more, how you can be involved in that process as well. Contextually speaking, Georgia is the 4th in detention population. There's a daily average, although this number has actually gone up, we just don't have accurate reports as to how much, but we know that as of August of 2025, last year, there were 61,226 people detained in immigration detention system per day. So what that means is in Texas, Louisiana, California, Georgia, and Arizona, and then throughout the rest of the United States, a daily average of people is about 61,000 in immigration detention. It used to be that immigration detention was specifically so that those who were arrested by ICE, who were here with non-citizenship and with non-qualifying residential status, if they were detained and they were proved to be eligible for deportation or needed to be deported, they would go to immigration detention center if they were a flight risk, so if there was worry that they would travel to different states, or if they had other deeper felonies that were harms or risks to other society members. And immigration detention centers were specifically to hold them for about a week, maybe no more than 2 weeks, to get them settled and set up to transport to their home country. That was what the idea behind immigration centers was when they were founded. At this point, what we are seeing is a severe sense of corruption around immigration detention centers, where these private for-profit companies are earning money per person detained per day. They have monetized things like phone calls, so you can no longer get free phone calls from within. They have monetized everything from postage, commissary, legal services, marriage, all of the services that they could possibly get within a detention center now cost so much money per person. Additionally, we're seeing medical neglect. We're seeing shortcuts in food. So we've got systems in detention centers purchasing food in bulk for very, very, very little money because it's just about expired, if not beyond expired. And so then it's easier and cheaper to feed many more people. We're seeing people held in detention centers for over 1.5 years, awaiting trial, awaiting to be heard. We're seeing human rights violations that are so deeply beyond what is being reported and what can even be fathomable, that it has now seemed like immigration detention is the goal and deportation is the mercy. It didn't used to be that way, but that is where we are, what we're seeing now. And in Georgia, what that looks like is Lumpkin being at the highest daily average of detention population in Georgia. It's important to note that we believe there are about 2,200 people detained at Stewart Detention Center, but Stewart was built to only hold a capacity of 1,752 people. That means overcrowding. We've got dorms that are maybe similar size to this room, but imagine 60 to 70 beds that you're trying to sleep people in, a lack of access to commissary, if commissary things like medicine and water and snacks, if those get refilled maybe once a week, but you've got 60 to 70 people fighting for that same product, they're gonna go out of stock pretty quickly. So you're seeing people fighting for resources, turning on each other, creating a lot of sense of violence. And when there's violence, then the guards have permission to use things like solitary confinement as a source of punishment, to use tear gas, to use pepper spray. And we're seeing that happen at volumes that are just so beyond what you might picture or imagine. They're very, very scary. So this is the context for why we exist. Our goal isn't just to provide hospitality to families, but to also work with families to cope with the fact that they know their loved one is experiencing this every day until they maybe get the mercy of release or deportation, which in and of itself is also complicated. Y'all have likely seen stories on the news of people being deported to countries that are not their home country. You're seeing stories of people who are being deported to countries they haven't been living in since they were maybe 1 year old and they don't have family there anymore. Or people who came to the United States under a temporary protected status, but it was revoked, meaning they suddenly became eligible for deportation, having fled a country that they're being refugees refugees from. So there are so many circumstances that are all nuanced. If I were to get into them all, I would go way beyond my 20 minutes. So all that to say is we exist within this context knowing that we can't solve these problems, but we can be a listening ear for folks who are going through this experience. You, as a member of your community, have an opportunity to do something too. You're likely a part of some kind of community, whether it's this one or another one, that can provide some kind of support. We have a lot of communities, both of faith and friend groups, who will write letters to those that are detained. We have folks who will come for the day and do visitations at the detention center just to keep someone company for a few minutes. We have folks who pull together and donate gas cards to us so that we can give those gas cards to the families that come to El Refugio. We've had run clubs and concerts. I've been to some of the coolest events. Next Saturday, it is a queer deadlifting competition that is all going to be in service of El Refugio. And so some of the most amazing groups of people have come together that have invited us to say, hey, we don't know what we can offer besides our solidarity, but come to this event and see if talking to people will help get them mobilized and involved. And that's what I'm doing here today. And that's kind of the gist, the essential thing that helps us function. We are 3.5 staff members. Everything else we do that I'm sharing is because of volunteers like y'all. We have a helpline that we use 2 lines from. One line is from those that are detained directly that can call us. It charges us, not them. So we pay to have them call us at any time. Our number circulates throughout the detention center, and we'll get calls from people 24 hours a day that say, hey, I need a commissary deposit, or I need a phone deposit, or please tell my mom I love her. Some things are heartbreaking that we have to pass on to other family members. Some things are just as simple as like, hey, I just kind of wanted to talk to someone. And we say, okay, how are you doing today? And so that is the helpline that we have for those that are detained. We also have a line for family members who call us and say, my loved one just got detained. I don't know what to do. What do I do? And so we coach them and walk them through the experience of what they can expect. We have family resources that we provide, legal providers, and different support systems that we can do. Some families call us with this fear that a severe human rights violation has occurred with their loved one, and we help them develop advocacy campaigns. So if you know the case of Rodney Taylor, we were behind the advocacy campaign that helped get his story shared. He's a double amputee who is a beloved barber in Atlanta, and his family was originally from Liberia, but he was detained, and we fought and fought and fought to ensure that he would be released, because at the time there were so many violations, including they weren't giving him his any of his aid devices. They weren't giving him medication. There was severe medical neglect. He was developing infections at a crazy rate. And so if you look up his story, Rodney Taylor, he's just been released as of last week or 2 weeks ago, which has been such a blessing. But now that, yes, thank you. And we will help anyone who wants to share their story with the media develop a campaign so they can do so. Overnight visitation at our hospitality house looks like people coming in on Saturdays, from Saturday to Sunday, staying the night with us, not necessarily ministering to people, but ministering with, in the sense that we're all eating the same food, we're making quesadillas together, we're playing with each other's kids, we're talking about what they're going through, we're visiting their loved ones at Stewart Detention Center for them. We're making beds, cooking meals, playing games, and just creating a sense of normalcy there in Lumpkin, so that as they're passing through to see their loved one, they have somewhere to land, a soft place to land, where they can have access to a bathroom, to a bed if they want to take a nap, and just to a community that embraces them. We have volunteer coordinators who are our trained leadership. They open the house 52 weeks a year. Saturdays and Sundays we're open. We also have what we call our Sunday shift. That's our closing shift, and it's people in Americus and Columbus specifically. So this is a program specifically for y'all's area. But Sunday shift are folks who come in. They're a little closer to Lumpkin, so it's easier to travel than those who are traveling from Atlanta. And Sunday shift comes in at around 1 o'clock to the hospitality house. They visit with the families that are kind of doing the last visitation shift at Stewart. They provide them some food and help them settle and then get traveling back on their way. But in the meantime, they also turn over our beds and kind of spruce up the house, do our full audit and inventory of the kitchen and the refrigerator and the pantry, so that we can then have the house open for next week. So we call them our beloved closing shift. And that's people specifically from Columbus and Americus. It's a small group, and it's a really, really wonderful way to just be involved. You can do one Sunday a month. You could do one Sunday a year. There are no expectations for how often you volunteer, but it's an opportunity to be available and help the house continue running. Our goals are to be hospitable to families as they come in and out, to be polite, not too invasive, but supportive, to not overstep our role as a volunteer. So we're, again, not there to fix or solve things, and a lot of times there are issues and cases that we cannot fix or solve. But we're there to represent El Refugio and to be, in a way, just a voice of support and a beloved pair of arms that can hold and help anyone who's going through what is probably one of the biggest challenges of their life. If you are interested in visiting people at Stewart Detention Center, you can reach us and we'll provide you with A numbers, just like our founders did in the parking lot. We will connect you with someone. You can be their pen pal, you can visit them, you can share face-to-face, or you can get to know their families as well, if that's something that you're interested in doing. We essentially, someone has asked, does Stewart like you guys, or are you guys friends? And they say, we're kind of frenemies. They don't like us, we don't like them. However, they recognize that we are the only resource that those families have. So when families come to Stewart, every once in a while, if a guard's in a good mood, they'll say, have you heard of El Refugio? Go there. Go there, go wait, and then you can come back for your visit. At this point, it's just if you catch them on a good day. But otherwise, if people are afraid of going to Stewart because of the fear of guards, we will accompany them. We will journey alongside them. We will physically make it possible for them to be there without harassment because we've been doing this work for so long. We have a confidentiality agreement to ensure that no stories or cases are exploited or used in a way that is unfavorable or just in a way that harms the participant. And in general, we will see between 1,300, and this number, we've actually already exceeded it this year, which is great. But in 2025, we had 1,300 people hosted at the house. We visited 174 people at Stewart. We were able to give over $10,000 in gas cards and $4,000 in commissary deposits. As a hospitality and advocacy is our job and our work, our goal is to get more people into the system, and our goal is to actually exceed these numbers, because we believe that if there are 2,200 people detained at Stewart, we're nowhere near at capacity for what we can do and what we should be doing. So if we can get more volunteers to be part of this process, then we can reach many more people and many more families going through this similar experience. This is more contact information about us. If you want to know more, if you want to be involved, or if you just want my card so that you can think about it, sit with it, meditate on it, and think about whether or not this is something that matters to you, please don't hesitate to let me know. It would be such an honor to see more of you all participate, and I'm just so, again, grateful for being here, and thank you for the invite.